No, I'll tell you then, when Frankie was 2.5, we went on a camping trip. We had another couple with us, Connie and Charlie Gilpin. And in those days, they had inner tubes in tires. When you get a flat tire, you have to take the tire all apart and you had to put a patch on this inner tube. And so we was on our way back home, and there was no water anywhere. So they forced the dad got gasoline out of the car and put in this bucket so they could test the tube, see if there was any bubbles coming up. And I was busy watching them doing that one, and I wasn't paying that much attention to Frank. Turned around in a minute, and here he had this bucket up just taking a good big swallow of gasoline. Oh, dear, it was silly. We got going real fast and went on in Colville or somewhere, I think. I don't just remember what place it was. We took him to the doctor, and the doctor said there was no use to pump his stomach because it evaporates real fast.
He lived through it.
Yeah. All he did was sleep too much. We had him doped. He slept all that afternoon and all that night. But I was up and down to him, so it was all right.
Well, now, he was 2.5. That's about the time that you were expecting B-Boy, too, then, wasn't it?
Well, see, this was summer, and I had B-Boy that November.
Mm-hmm. And you were still in Evanston at that time.
Tell us about B.
So then, we were up on Spencer's Ranch, because that was when everybody was out on the railroad strike. And
Go ahead.
I went downtown, was living with some people by the name of Lithgow. We just had one daughter, and she was in high school. They were real good to me. And so we had a little bee, then I went back up to the ranch. But then summertime came, and Frank and little bee got whooping cough, and the other kids up at the ranch, and the cowboy cousins. And poor little Frank, he used to get down on his knees and cough full of blood and just run out of his nose. Oh, it was terrible. And the only thing he liked to take for it was mentholatum, and he'd eat jars of mentholatum. Because that's something that helped him. I didn't want anybody to have that. But anyway, to be close to a doctor, and all Grandma Spencer said she wanted us to go down and stay with her. Because Grandma did have Dr. Ray at the time. So we were staying with her, and little B got really sick, so Dr. Ray came in and said he had pneumonia. They didn't know what to do with pneumonia in those days. And he was doctoring as best he could, but in the night, this night when he died, I had him sleeping with me so I could hear him. And he threw his little hand over on my face, and I turned on the light, and he was gone. And I couldn't sleep for the longest time after that. I always feel that little hand. But much we could do about it. So then we moved to Occoquan. And Ben Gunn was up there working for the railroad. And he wrote a letter to your dad and told him that he better come up there because he said that they could use a lot of machinists on the railroad. And he said, you won't be working with people that gone in the scab dummies, and that's what they call them. We're going to take jobs over to the guys right on strike. So he went to Pocatello, and he was up there a couple of months, then he sent for us, and we went up. And that was in September 23. And then the next May I had Bud. And in the meantime, when I had Frank, my dad, I've got to go back to that. When I had Frank, my dad always thought twins would be such a nice thing to have. He always wanted twins. And so the morning Frank was born, why, Howard run down to tell him. And of course, he was kidding with me when he first told him. He said, we got twin boys. And oh, that was just great. So he was going to get dressed and come right and see me right then. And after we left, Mom said, didn't you hear him tell you that it wasn't? It's only one. And he was just joking with me. So I did see Dad for a couple of days. So he just helped me out that. He got the food on that.
More twins.
Yeah, he always wanted twins. So,
Never had any in our family, did we?
Chuck and Sue are the only ones that I know any twins. And they've got no history of it either. Just things that happen, I guess. So, oh, I told you that, didn't I? You went to Pocatello, and then that next day I had you. And Dad had bought for Frankie one of those big cane, beautiful buggies. And of course I used it for Ruby, and we still had it. And in those days when you'd walk to town, of course, and I walked to town with him. Every time I'd get out and he'd sleep, his butt almost wet to go to town. I'd have to help buggy and get out and lift him up and hold him as if he was breathing. And you go through that when you've lost one, I guess, you know. But he was good-natured, evil actually. But he loved me many a time.
Now, when I was born, we lived on Main Street. Then we moved over to Arthur when Dale was born.
Yeah, no, Dale was born on Main.
Was he really?
Yeah. He was there.
So well, that was the first thing I could remember is the night that Dale was born, and where we lived on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Next to the ladies that had the big flower garden in their yard.
Yeah, so, I'll tell you about Dale too. And when Dale was born, the cord was wrapped around his neck and it broke. And of course, if it was this day and age now, why, they would give me a blood transfusion and I don't know whether they'd given him one then or not, but anyway, 2 hours the nurse was checking him again and he hemorrhaged again. So then, they had to sew his little navel some way and give him a blood transfusion. And of course, then they never knew people had a certain type of blood or anything. But this nurse, Betty Devlin, she said, well, I've got good blood. She said, I'll give you blood for that baby. So Dale always said that, he gets different blood. Because he's got AB negative instead of B. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, but anyway, he always gives me the blood. So then we moved over at 812 North Arthur, and I was expecting Betty Lou. And the boys, with Betty Lou, if she hadn't been Betty Lou, I don't know what they would have done. But they all said, Mama's going to have Betty Lou. And then
Who named her then?
about a week before we had her, why, we went over to, they were opening the American Falls Dam. That was the first big dam. And that day we walked and walked and we walked. We went down in that thing and over the top of it and all. And sometimes I was carrying Dale. Well, the next week I had Betty Lou. She came early. And they hadn't worked with her bill, or they, I don't know, they just didn't know a lot about things in those days. But they put her in cold water, and then they put her in hot water, and then they put her in cold water and back in the hot water to get her to breathe. And they worked with her like that for, I don't know how long they worked with her, but I always thought, you know, I better not put that in there. But she was sure cute. She was so little. She only weighed 4 pounds and 12 ounces.
Lots of people visited you when you were in the hospital with her?
Oh, yes. And one morning the nurse came into the house and said, you've got 3 young gentlemen out there that want to see you. And so she went out and brought 2 kids in and stood there way in the doorway. And you had their arms full of these red roses. I mean, yellow roses. And you know, yellow roses only have stems about so long and they grow all up.
The old-fashioned type
Yeah.
yellow roses.
And they cut them off of these big, long
We pulled them up with the roots,
branches.
didn't we?
Well, you maybe did, and kind of stickery. But anyway, there they were, had all these yellow roses in their arms. So we've always had a net for yellow roses. Then the night I had Betty Lou, we called the doctor. We didn't have a car then.
You're talking about Betty Lou or Joanne now?
Joanne, what did I say?
You said Betty Lou.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Joanne.
This
And
is November of 18, what,
29.
29, okay.
And November the 14th. And so we called the doctor, and he came out, and it was November. And I can still remember him helped me pull my socks on to get me going, you know. And then he took Howard and I down to the hospital. And this is one thing about your dad, he was with me every time I had you sick. Stayed right with me all the time. And, but she got, the nurses, and then about the third day, used to keep us in the hospital 10 days then. Flat on your back, you didn't get up or you never got out. And then when you that 10 days was up, you were so wobbly that you wondered if you was ever going to walk again. Just one day, they got a fire in the x-ray room, and the whole hospital was filling with smoke. They told them that we weren't in any danger, that it was just smoke from the film, but boy, it was a scary thing anyway.
They evacuated you, or you just stay in your
No,
room?
they didn't evacuate us because it was quite a ways away, but somehow it came up through the vents or something.